So today I wanted to show you how you can knit the Brother lace designs using the Brother Chunky machines, model KH-260 punch card and model KH-270 electronic machine. Both of these Brother Chunky machines didn't come with lace carriages, but because they have a 24 stitch repeat, you can use the Brother lace designs either by using the electronics on the 270 or the Brother lace punch cards on the 260. Of course, in my case, it's a chunky 260 punch card, and I'm not sure if the 270 had any lace patterns input in its memory. If it doesn't, you'll have to input them yourself. Of course, you can use the Stitch World book that came with the 950, 965, 965i, that sort of thing. You can use the designs out of there as long as they're 24 stitches wide. And of course you can use the Brother punch card pattern books and find a design in there and input that. But anyway, what you want to do is you want to have the card locked on row 1, or if you're using the 270, you need to have the design input and ready to select. So in my case, the card's locked on row 1, and before we go any further, we want to take the carriage off the bed, turn it over, and we want to get the single prong transfer tool, and we want to turn the end needle selection cams to cancel them. We want end needle selection off when doing this technique. This is certainly the case for the 260. The 270 might have a KC2 setting, I'm not sure, but in any case, end needle selection needs to be cancelled. Put the carriage back on the bed. So, I can get my yarn back up here, catching on everything. There we go. So I've cast on and knit about, 10 rows, and I'm ready to start my lace design. So with the card locked on row 1, on the 270, make sure it's, as I said, input and ready to select. On the 260, set the carriage to KC. KC on the 270, or if it has KC2, set it to KC2. Press in both part buttons, and then take the carriage across from left to right. And you can see it's selected needles. If any needles selected at the end, just push them back. Of course, transferring end stitches in lace will make decreases, and we don't want that. So, we take our single prong transfer tool, and we manually transfer these stitches, and we transfer them in the opposite direction to which the carriage has just travelled. So my carriage is on the right, so I'm going to transfer my stitches to the left. If my carriage was on the left here, I would transfer my stitches to the right. Now, of course, this does take longer than using the lace carriage, but it's certainly easier than following a chart, because you're getting the carriage to select the needles for you, and you just move them over. When you transfer the stitches, make sure you leave the needles in B position, or working position. That includes needles with stitches on them and empty needles, and they all need to be in line, otherwise you could end up with drop stitches or mispatterning. Okay, before we go any further, we need to make sure we release the card. Needles are selected again. I'm going to transfer them again in the opposite direction that the carriage has just travelled. Another thing to note, if counting rows is important for you, when you're doing the needle selection for the transfers, make sure you turn your row counter off, because otherwise the counter is going to lie to you and it's going to make you think you've knitted much more than you actually have. When you have finished a set of transfers, no more needles will be selected. So just take the carriage back until we get to the turnaround mark on the card. Sometimes this will be a number telling you how many rows you need to knit in between lace transfers. On the electronic machine, the 270, you'll have given it memo information, so the memo window will be telling you how many rows to knit in between the transfers. So at this point, after we've finished our set of transfers, we cancel KC and go back to normal. The part buttons should automatically cancel. If they don't, make sure they are cancelled and knit the required number of rows. Now, of course, this is a bit tight. Sometimes the stitches don't knit off properly. There we go. Knit back. There's our first lot of eyelets. Now, carriage back to KC. Bit of muck on it there. Both part buttons in. Again, if the 270 has KC2, make sure it's set to KC2. And continue on with the transfers. Once again, I'll just recap. Make sure you're transferring the stitches in the opposite direction that the carriage has just travelled, and that you're leaving the needles lined up in B position. Both needles with stitches on them and needles with stitches, or without stitches I should say. So basically you just repeat what I've just shown you until you've completed the repeat of the design. So I think you get the idea there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit one full repeat of this card, and then I'll show you what it looks like. And here's the finished pattern. Obviously it's on a bigger scale than it would be on a standard gauge machine, but it's still rather effective all the same. And if you compare the pattern to the Stitch World book that I got the design from, you can see it's just the same little leaves in the centre, diagonal there. So there you go. That's how you can knit brother lace designs on a chunky punch card or electronic brother machine. So hopefully you get to try this, and happy knitting.